Hi and welcome back to the channel. People who didn't live through the VHS revolution in the 80s can't fully appreciate what a breakthrough entertainment technology it was. Before the VHS Betamax wars, only a copy of a movie was all but impossible for your average movie buff. Yeah, you could buy an 8mm projector, usually without sound, and then buy a bunch of Castle Film Company truncated versions of popular movies, which either came in 50-foot reels giving you 3 to 4 minutes of film, or the much more expensive 200-foot reels that gave you 12 to 16 minutes of a brutally edited movie. Here in Australia, I only ever saw the reels in a specialty camera store in Sydney, so even getting them was difficult. The other options were either an encore cinema showing a movie you wanted to see, or you wait around for a television station to broadcast the movie and sit in front of it exactly when they showed it. The struggle was real. Home video changed that. I was excited as hell when I ponied up $700 for my first VHS player and got my very first movie, Kismet. For the first time, I actually had a copy of a film, and from that moment, I was in the Shangri-La of physical media ownership. Then we had video stores, and before the chain stores like Blockbuster and Civic Video and Video Easy took over, indie stores were where you went at sunset on a Saturday evening to find the good stuff. For me, it was occasionally the new releases, but for the most part, it was the 10 for $10 weekly rentals that drew me in. 10 for 10 was how I found these movies I'm going to talk about. At $1 a week, you're going to take a chance with something weird. Weird is good. Weird takes you out of your comfort zone. Weird works. Radioactive Dreams is a pop cultural mashup of 1940s private eye tropes, post-nuclear survival story in the manner of A Boy and His Dog, and 1980s music videos, and strangest of all, a 1940s Hollywood musical. When every nuclear weapon but one was launched in 1986, Philip, played by John Stockwell, and Marlowe, played by Michael Dudikoff, were put in a bomb shelter as children by two private eyes played by George Kennedy and Don Murray. Raising themselves on a combination of pulp novels and 1940s music, Phil and Marlowe eventually dig themselves out of the shelter and emerge in a world of mutant tribes, giant sewer rats, dangerous dames and cannibals. These two naive guys hold the keys to the last nuke's launching codes, and everybody wants them. We get Lisa Blount as tough dame Miles Archer, which is another movie reference by the way, and Michelle Little as Rusty, and they offer able support in the femme fatale / good woman duality roles too. With Phil's skewed tough guy private eye voiceover, this movie surprisingly has an interesting subtext. It's secretly about growing up and realizing that the world isn't always a good place, and it's also about working out how to live with that when it challenges your instinctive idealism. In Phil and Marlowe's case, it's making the most of it and dancing the post-nuke shuffle. The soundtrack to Radioactive Dreams is solid 1980s West Coast synth pop, and it's grown in popularity over the decades. Director Albert Pyun gave us so many watchable B-movies in the 80s and 90s. Cyborg, The Sword and the Sorcerer, Nemesis, Amiga Doom, and a really bad version of Captain America. Made by Touchstone Pictures in the same year as Radioactive Dreams, with one of the same stars, John Stockwell. My science project is dead simple in its plot. A high school student, Mike, and his date Ellie, played by Daniel von Zernick, find a machine in a military junkyard near his hometown. The gizmo is a warp engine that President Eisenhower ordered to be lost in 1957. The gizmo starts sucking electricity from every nearby source and creates time warps all over the high school. Aided by smart-ass psychic Vince, played by Fisher Stevens, and the nerd Sherman, Raphael Sabaj. By the way, the name Sherman is a reference to Mr. Peabody and Sherman from the old cartoons. Mike has to shut down the increasingly powerful machine and rescue Ellie from an educational institution full of dinosaurs, cavemen, and futuristic mutants. Mutants were a big thing in the 80s. Throw in Dennis Hopper having a great time in the role of Bob, the hippie science teacher who instinctively groks the warps. Some good practical and animation special effects, and a life-size dinosaur puppet with its guts spilled out, and you have a fun 1980s science fiction movie. In the Spielberg mode, the movie, written and directed by Jonathan Butel, who also gave us The Last Starfighter, is full of pop culture Easter eggs from Speed Racer to Rin Tin Tin, Davy Crockett, and even Country Joe and the Fish. Vince's Goomba one-liners and a couple of homophobic slurs get tiresome, but for the most part, My Science Project aged as well. It's fun, it's imaginative, and it works. From the writers who gave us Spike Lee's latest movie, The Five Bloods, Paul DeMeo and Danny Bilson, this is another mashup of diverse ideas. Evil genius Abbott Reeves, played by Roy Dotrice, has created his own $6 million man, the Mandroid, played by Patrick Reynolds. A cyborg who comes with his own optional accessories, including a tank. The android, with his Swiss cheese memory, escapes and finds Dr. Nora Hunter, played by Denise Crosby, a cyberneticist who has a pet robot called Spot, search, patrol and operational tactician. In order to track down Reeves and stop him from going back to Imperial Rome and changing history, they hire disreputable boat captain Harry Fontana, played by Andrew Prine, to take them up a Mexican river to Reeves' headquarters. Along the way they meet a ninja, played by Conan Lee, who helps them out. The movie mashes up the African Queen, the $6 million man, the time tunnel, and a robot that is not entirely dissimilar to the annoying robot you saw in The Black Hole. This joint from Charles Band's Empire Pictures is full of animated laser blasts, squib explosions, some fun wise guy dialogue, and a few effective action scenes. It's entertaining but is far from perfect, but something about it yells 1980s weekly rental, and that rings my nostalgia bell. By the way, Patrick Reynolds, who plays Mandroid, was one of the heirs to the R.J. Reynolds tobacco empire. He's the black sheep of the family because he became one of the most powerful anti-smoking advocates in the USA, so good on you, Mandroid. Martha Coolidge's Real Genius is a movie I rediscovered a couple of years ago while doing my reviews for ABC Radio. We were doing a nostalgia thing and we decided to review Revenge of the Nerds, which was a big mistake. If you have fond memories of Revenge of the Nerds, don't revisit it. The so-called heroes of the movie, the nerds, were pretty much rapists. No consent, no respect for women, and reviewing it was one of the worst reviewing experiences I ever had on radio. So the following week we did Real Genius, and Real Genius does what Revenge of the Nerds doesn't. It does Nerds at College really well. The movie has a purpose. Mitch, played by Gabe Jarrett, is a teenage genius who finds himself in both senses of the phrase. At Pacific Tech, earning his science degree by working with Professor Jerry Hathaway, the ever-evil William Atherton, on high-energy laser research which Mitch doesn't know will be used to make an orbital assassination weapon for a bunch of CIA Black Ops bastards. Fortunately, Mitch meets with anarchy force of nature genius student Chris Knight, played by Val Kilmer in his second film after Top Secret, and Chris introduces him to the other science nerds, including smart klutzy Jordan, played by Michelle Meyerink, who is not objectified and sexualized at all, which is rare in 1980s comedy. They also find a guy called Laszlo who lives in the walls of their dorm, who is a burnout from the same type of project that Chris and Mitch are working on. Things come to a head when the CIA plan to test their space shuttle mounted mega laser, but the team decides to pull a college prank to beat all college pranks using the weapon. This one's got really good dialogue, it's got some terrific technological pranks, righteous computer hacking, a social conscience, and a climax you'll never forget. Real Genius's moral compass and its interesting twist on a coming-of-age story makes it a great popcorn movie. Like Eliminators, this one was written by Danny Bilson and Paul DeMeo and directed by Danny Bilson, who apart from Eliminators and The Five Bloods, also put together the 1990 Flash TV series with John Wesley Shipp, and they wrote The Rocketeer for Touchstone Pictures based on Dave Stevens' graphic novel. Zone Troopers, made for Empire Pictures again, knows what kind of movie it is. It's a World War II science fiction movie. It's got the usual lost patrol behind enemy lines, with Sarge, played by Tim Thomerson, Verona, the naive kid who reads science fiction pulps, played by Vincent Van Patten, the nuggety corporal, played by Art LaFleur, and the war correspondent Doolin, played by Biff Maynard, who stumble on a Nazi outpost which has found a crashed spaceship and captured a hairy, bug-eyed alien. Using 3 of the same actors from their breakout movie Trances from the year before, Wilson and DeMio's movie has its tongue firmly in its cheek. It plays like a mashup of Samuel Fuller's The Steel Helmet, It Came from Outer Space, and a little bit of Inglourious Bastards. It also settles, to my satisfaction, the question on whether you should punch Nazis.
Oh my God. Pinch me, darling. Did I just KO Hitler?
You sure did, champ.
The movie was filmed in Italy and the budget was pretty low, but the production design is solid. The crashed spaceship inside and out looks better than you'd expect from this level of movie. As I said, it's not a serious film, but it sits squarely in the circle of VHS era classics. Every video shop I went to in the mid-80s had copies of Zone Troopers, except one in a suburb called Baldwin, which I still hate, because the video shop was full of bland and middle-of-the-road movies for the boring white people who infested the area. So there are my 5 VHS era favourites. I really like these movies, and it was fun rewatching them and thinking about them and revisiting them. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, clicking like, and hitting the notification bell. I'll be back at the end of the week with another video. In the meantime, look after yourselves. Get the jab, and if you're an anti-vaxxer, I'm going to say get the jab whether you like it or not. And I'll catch you next time.